Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Iron Kraken podcast. We've been gone for a while. Crazy times in this world, so we haven't had a chance to, really communicate a lot with, Basil and whatever. But we've been playing a lot of TTS. Any chance I get to play a game, I'd rather do that and hang out with my buddies as a social activity than actually record podcasts. So I'm sorry. It is what it is. But we have Basil here on the show, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, a little bit of hobby, a little bit of the new 3.0 rules. As you all know, he's a really prolific kind of Seraphon player, does a lot of tournaments and competitive play, so we'll just pick his brain about that stuff. And so say hello, Basil.
Hello, internet world. And prolific. I try hard, but the results haven't quite been there yet. I haven't quite broken through that 3-2 barrier. It seems like every tournament I go to, I end up 3-2. Kind of no matter how I start, no matter how I finish, somehow it always shakes out as 3-2. So I'm hoping Nashcon, maybe I can dodge my way to a 4-1, but we'll see. We will see.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, weren't Lizardmen players and Seraphon players always tryhards? I mean,
yeah, a little bit. Look, there's it's like half love for dinosaurs, half just wanna smash some people up with skinks that are probably still a little underpointed for what they do. But no, yeah, it's nice to being the one faction diehard that I am. It's nice that Seraphon has kind of always at least hung around a little bit towards the tail end of the first book. They kind of drifted off a little bit there, but they always seem to be somewhere in kind of the upper half of the sort of competitive books, which is obviously really nice. Kind of through thick or thin, they always seem to turn out somewhat decently, which is always something I've enjoyed.
Nice. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think of 3.0? Like, forget about the Seraphon for just a tiny second. We're going to get back to them. We're going to talk about them and your list and kind of pick your brain on exactly how you're looking at them based on the new rules. But just in general, what do you think of the new 3.0 rules? Like, we won't go over like everything because there's other podcasts that do it better. They go through every single rule and everything like that. But just what stands out to you in regards to gameplay? Like, what's the biggest thing that?
Yeah, so I've gotten the chance to fortunately play quite a bit of 3.0 by now. It's been out for I don't know, about a month and a half maybe at this point, 2 months. And I like it a lot. I think that the biggest things for me that stand out, just in terms of kind of difference from 2.0, is the battle plans, the way it's scored, and then the sort of the reactionary abilities. So kind of the redeploys, the unleash hells, the way that the command points kind of let you have a little bit more reaction in your turn, versus kind of just sitting there and waiting around. In your opponent's turn, I mean, versus sitting there and just kind of waiting around for your turn to happen. Definitely feel like that is kind of the biggest changes, and something that I've liked a lot. I think the meta, we'll see in the next couple months, it kind of start to settle down a little bit, and things, the kind of like the lists to beat and stuff like that, those will be a little bit more coalesced in terms of what they are and exactly what they're trying to do. But I've been really enjoying it, especially I think the battle plans are really nice, especially the way that they're scored now. It keeps games pretty tight. The sort of the introduction of the battle tactics and the way that you can kind of stack additional points by having monsters in your list and stuff like that, has really encouraged some encourage you to kind of be a little bit more thoughtful maybe with the way you build your list, because that kind of stuff does start to play a role. I think especially you'll see at these larger tournaments where you'll end the tournament with more than one person who's undefeated. The thing that's going to separate that, number one placement versus the twos and the threes is those extra battle points that you can score. It's, at Summer Slaughter this past weekend, that was the big deal. The people, the Bill who won, he had 30s kind of across the board for all his wins, and a big part of that was the ability to kind of get those extra bonus points and ensure that the Savage Spearhead with 2 monsters, or the Kill Battleline with a monster, getting those extra points every turn over the course of a 5-game event really starts to stack up, and it really starts to kind of separate the field a little bit more in terms of who you're playing, who you're playing against, and who you're, ultimately how you can kind of finish compared to everything. So outside of that competitive stuff, though, I think just, redeploy, unleash hell, having the kind of like the little bit of the replenishing command points that lets you be a little bit more active in all phases, versus just kind of having this bunch of command points that you start the game with and you're like, all right, well, I have, I'm going to get one every turn. I might pay for an extra one. I might have an extra one from a battalion, but I'm basically sitting on one every turn. And if you need that for, to save something from battle shock, then it's like you're not really getting the chance to use a lot of those cool abilities throughout, kind of defensively or in your opponent's turn as a reaction to some stuff that's going on. So the ability for those command points for both players generally to have, as the Seraphon player, command points was not something I ever really struggled with having, but I think it's almost like having the Seraphon effect across more armies, like just more armies having access to more command points does really kind of make a lot of that stuff a lot more engaging. And I've been really enjoying it. The one thing that I haven't been totally loving is the kind of the rise of these sort of very unkillable control-based lists where, it's the, not that Archeon was ever easy to kill, but all out defense adding +1 to your save, just every army having access to that now does, give a lot of defensive possibilities to a lot of things. You're seeing a lot of monsters on 2-up saves being very prevalent. You're seeing, the Maw Crushers, the Archeons, the Gotreks, the, Marathis, all this sort of stuff is becoming very
like the Nagashes and the Petrifex with those rerolling ones, and it just gets a little crazy. Yeah, I totally get it. What about like not in-game necessarily, but kind of pre-game army composition? What do you think of the reinforcement rules? Because I think that is actually one of my personal favorites, because it really does allow make you think about what you should reinforce, what you shouldn't, and should you run MSU, or do you want your units to become larger and kind of run that kind of 60-man kind of grot list, or like units, or things like that? Because I know that your Skinks have changed up a little bit because of that.
Yeah, the reinforcement rule definitely did change kind of the composition, especially of a lot of the Seraphon lists, but just kind of in general. I think that the limitation to how many times units can be reinforced is a lot more impactful than the limit on how many reinforcements you have in your army. I've found 4 reinforcements to be more than enough for most of the lists I want to build. I've found the limit of 2 reinforcements for a battle line or 1 reinforcement for a non-battle line to be the thing that really kind of changes a lot. Instead of just using Seraphon as an example, because it's what I know. Instead of having the 2 packs of 3 Salamanders, you have 3 packs of 2, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but it does actually kind of change how that unit plays a lot. So instead of having these like ultra hyper efficient, buffed up single units, you kind of find that it's a little bit more spread out. But then you also have things like, zombies or grots, these things that start in the minimum of 20, and then you can buff them up to 60. It's like having, 60 zombies is definitely something to kind of, keep in mind in terms of, just dealing with that in a 3.0 game. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that, I haven't found it to be super limiting in terms of when I'm building lists. I have found that it does create interesting scenarios, especially for stuff that's not Battleline. So only being able to reinforce stuff once that's not Battleline does, I think, have a pretty big role in terms of, kind of different compositions you can make. Like, once upon a time, you could have a unit of 12 pterodons, and that's, you could have 2 units of 12 pterodons. Now you can't. You're hard capped to a unit of 6, which does change the way that unit functions a lot. And I'm sure there's tons of examples. I don't actually. Pterodons are one of those units that requires a little bit of finesse that I just haven't quite figured out how to use. They're very fragile. A lot of their play comes from the ability to drop the bombs, and it's better players I'm sure can make a lot of good calls with them, but I just haven't never quite figured out how to make them work in my favor. But reinforcement rules, I like them. I've tended to at first it was a little bit of a kind of a shock to the system, just because it does really kind of cause you to rethink things. But as I played more games, I've found the battle plans and the way that the game scores to be a lot more of a mitigating factor in terms of how I'm building my list than reinforcements. I've found that ultimately I'm looking at the game from, all right, the scoring is way different. How do I play around that? And then the reinforcements just kind of are what they are, versus, okay, I only have 4 reinforcements. How am I going to maximize the efficiency of that?
Just for those that haven't really had a game in yet or don't have a lot of experience with the battle plans, they've kind of went towards a little bit of the ITC kind of old 40K style, kind of where you have like hold 1, hold 2, hold more, and then are you accomplishing certain missions each turn that you pick at the beginning of like the turn phase. So you get to pick different things at the beginning of each round that you can accomplish, and that actually allows you to pilot your army more so on the tabletop versus actually net listing or kind of theory hammering a list pre-game and then just running it on a type of autopilot, so you become more of an interactive player. Not only does that allow you to actually interact yourself with your own list on a turn-by-turn basis, depending on what happens, so you become reactionary, but it also allows you to activate in your opponent's turn to actually react to his gameplay. Like Basil just said, you have, you could run away from combat with somebody charges, or you can shoot at something. If your unit shoots, it's called Unleash Hell, something that I would love because I play a very shooty army, Citizen Sigma all the way, no, he's totally right. Between the army composition of reinforcements, not only that you get 4, but only what you can reinforce, then the battle plans, and then tertiary like point of reactions. I think this edition by far for me is one of the most fun I've had in tabletop wargaming personally. So
no, yeah, I definitely agree, and I do think that the reinforcement rules, what they have done is they have encouraged these kind of reinforcement rules, combined with some of the other things, have started to encourage a little bit more of this sort of mixed arms approach, where you'll see a lot of lists that have, a monster or two to get those extra battle points. They'll have, some combination of tough battle line with a few Soul Blight, I think, is a great example, just because I feel like that book was built for 3 in mind, where Soul Blight has some battle line units that, you kind of want to build up, the zombies, the skeletons, you kind of want to build those up a little bit, but then they also have things like the Grave Guard. We're going to have, like, Grave Guard would have the potential to be super oppressive, if you could just bring 30 of them in addition to all your you can, if you take a white king as your general, they can be battle line. But I think just kind of having these like core battle line that you can kind of hold some points with, and they can kind of stick around just a little bit, while also having these units, the Vampire Lord and the Zombie Dragons, the Grave Guards, that can kind of do a little bit more of the damage and the monstrous reactions, and the kind of be a little bit more of those scalpel pieces that help you score your battle tactics. It makes a big difference. And I think something that you said about sort of planning the game, the battle tactics change that a lot, whereas like you can't really give up turns anymore. So in 2.0 you could kind of, especially with the list that I played, you could be very, very passive in the first couple turns, knowing that, on certain battle plans, you could score 15 points in 5 if you held all of them, or you could kind of climb back in a lot of battle plans very easily. Whereas in now it's, you don't really want to drop a battle tactic in any turn. And there's a couple that you can score passively. So, if you can't kill a battle line, if you can't kill a monster, you can run 3 units and have them end within 3 of each other. So there are some that let you do that, but it does definitely encourage you kind of like being a little bit more active from the start of the game, where you can't just like totally sort of throw away half the game and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go down by 8 points, but I'm just gonna come roaring back at the end of the game because I know that that's what my army's capable of. If you go down 8 points, even if you do come back to ultimately win, it's kind of crippled your overall score so much that, again, in these kind of like larger competitive events, it does become very problematic when it comes to kind of placing and where ultimately you're ending up when you're getting, 25 points in your win versus the person who's scoring 6 every turn, with, the battle tactics plus the extra point plus the hold 1, the hold 2, and the hold more. Like they're getting that kind of max points every turn. They're the person that's going to ultimately kind of be the one that takes the event, regardless of whether you win all your games or not. And, so I think in kind of the 1v1, at the local gaming store kind of scenario, you won't need to be so concerned about that. You will be able to kind of play this game where it's like, yeah, I can't score a battle tactic this turn, but that's fine because I can win the game by denying their battle tactics and kind of squeak this win out at the end by 1 or 2 points.
No, you make an incredibly important point here, because I've actually tested this out personally. I was playing Luke. He was playing his Ogre Mort tribes, and I was like, oh, you know what? He doesn't have enough range. Like, I asked him how far things move. He was playing a gigantic blob of Ogre Gluttons, and then he was playing with his Stonehorn and like 2 units of Mornfang. So I was like, you know what? Let me try just sitting there. I got the first turn, and I wanted to be passive. He actually got so many points in that first turn because I gave up my first turn in order for him to come up the board. Because in 2.0 you could do that. You that was actually a tactic, like a counter tactic of somebody trying to charge you. So you could just sit back, do absolutely nothing for turn 1, wait for them to come up mid-board, and then either shoot at them, charge them, or do whatever you wanted to. But I almost lost the game. I was actually playing catch-up for the 4 following turns, and I only won the game by 2 points at the very end. And I actually tabled him, but that was the only way I could have won. Because then I could have gotten my major kind of objective that was kill the warlord, or like vendetta, whatever
Mhm.
it's called. And then yeah, but it was an uphill battle, and that first turn he got 15 points. I think he didn't get 15 points.
I think
He got
it'd
like
probably be six.
six, exactly.
Is generally
He started with six.
what the
Yeah,
turns
yeah, yeah,
max
yeah.
around max out at.
No, but by the end of two, he had like 12
Yeah.
points, and then I was at 7, and then I slowly caught up to the whole thing. So long story short, what I'm trying to say is you cannot really play passively. You cannot just give up a turn. You cannot just say, don't worry about it, I'll catch up later. You have to be active. You have to choose your correct objectives, like minors, kind of each turn, and you have to choose them wisely.
Mhm.
You can't just kill everything at the beginning, because then you reach the end of the game and you're like, oh my god, I can't complete this one because he has no more units that I can
Right.
kill, or I just killed the warlord by accident in turn 2, therefore I can't score this thing. So you like you said, the overall
It's a little
tournament
bit
points.
more, yeah, it's a little bit more tactical. So like and when I was at Summer Slaughter, I played a effect player. Turn 1, you know, he had kind of left an opening where I could drop my salamanders and shoot at his 2 Terrorgeists. So
Actually, I do want to ask you about Summer Slaughter, because you and Luke went to Summer
Yep,
Slaughter.
we went, but yeah, I think so. I ended up killing both Terrorgeists, and what it did was it made it so that I had picked Bring It Down, or I think I picked Slay the Warlord as my battle tactic that turn. So I got that, but because I also killed the other Terrorgeist and he had no monsters left after that, it made it so Bring It Down was no longer an option for me to complete later in the game, which, you know, and that's not to say like that's like a deal breaker or anything, but it does kind of bring this element that I think, you know, competitive 40K is seeing a lot of now, where it's like if you kill too much too fast, it does it has repercussions. It's not always super problematic, but it's something that you need to take in mind, where it's like, oh, if I took both monsters off the board top of turn 1, I have to now keep that in mind when I'm picking my battle tactics for the rest of the turn. Exactly. And I think that's just ends up being super important in terms of everything now, is just having some kind of idea of like what battle tactics you want to score when. You kind of got to think that out just a little bit. And I think obviously better players are thinking it out more than just a little bit, but you kind of got to have a little bit of a plan of like, all right, if I am going to be this, you know, kind of pseudo passive turn 1, that's going to mean that I have, you know, X, Y, and Z battle tactic left over for turns 3, 4, and 5. Like, am I going to make sure I got to score those? You know, if I'm going to kill a battle line you know, and I don't pick that turn 1 or turn 2, I got to make sure there's a battle line available to pick later, or same thing with the monster. So I like that a lot. I like that element does kind of bring in a little bit of choice, and I like that a lot of the battle plans now, they're more kind of centrally located. A lot of the objectives, there's a lot of that kind of like 3 objectives sort of spread in like a diagonal. That seems to be a pretty common objective layout in quite a few of the missions, and it does encourage obviously you to be a little bit more pushed up. You know, you don't have 2 objectives in your deep in your deployment that you can kind of just be like, all right, dude, okay, I'm going to sit here, or, you know, I'm going to score my 2 points, 4 points, whatever battle plan it was, and kind of just play this like, I'm going to get my 2 year and year 2 every game, where it's like, it does kind of encourage you to push up. And that's not to say they're all like that, but I do like that it does seem to encourage you to be a little bit more engaged with the battle from the very first turn to the very last turn.
As most of us kind of already realized, this whole like edition of AoS is played in Gur, like, right, the realm of beasts. or nature, or this kind of like feral savagery kind of thing. So monsters are actually promoted in this edition by actual in-game rules. You know, if you hold an objective with a monster, you get extra points. If you accomplish certain things with behemoths or monster keywords, you get extra points. You have heroes that ride monsters that actually kind of like, you know, make up for that kind of you know, milestone in your scoring. A lot of people said that online, I haven't actually had any personal experience with it because I run some monsters, but not too much. But say, for example, like Sons of Behemoth, you know, they said, oh, if you run too many monsters, you can give up points. But then at the same time, you can score more points with the monsters throughout the game than you would actually lose if you actually have the monster taken out. Is that just in my head, or is that something that you've actually because what I'm saying is, like, say you have a Gargant that's sitting on an objective, scoring that objective, getting extra points for 3 turns, right? So that's extra points for 3 turns versus that one time
there's
that he
not
loses.
there's not a just hold an objective, score more points kind of
Right,
idea.
right. No, that was just a very
for example, yeah. So I know.
Right.
So I think what we're seeing in lists is that the kind of the sweet spot is two tough monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 tough monsters, what that does is it gives you the possibility to score the bonus battle tactic across the board, assuming you have a wizard that can turn something into a monster as well,
right,
with the
metamorphosis or whatever it's called. Yeah.
So there's, you know, ferocious advance. You get the bonus point if all 3 of the units that advance and end their moves within 3 are monsters. Right. And then every other one just requires a monster to do something. So that one has the 3 monster requirement. So it allows you to kind of, you have 2 tough monsters. You can turn your wizard into a monster. You can get the bonus point there. And then your 2 tough monsters can get the rest of the bonus points available to you, while also potentially only giving up 2 points. Suns are kind of a unique scenario in my mind, just because they deny battle tactics so well. So it's like, if you pick the kill the battle line battle tactic, to kill a battle line in Sons of Behemoth, it's, you know, kill a giant, which is hard. So those bonus points become critical when you're playing against giants in terms of helping you kind of stay in the game a little bit, and not so detrimental to the giant player, just because the way the rest of that army is constructed, it does a pretty good job of kind of denying points in general. But I think on the flip side of that, what you won't see is, you won't see an army that just has a ton of cheap monsters. You know, you won't see Beast of Chaos is an example. They have a ton of cheap monsters available to them. You are not going to see that stuff.
Like probably the cockatrices or
yeah, it just, because you are going to bleed a point every turn, and those monsters aren't necessarily, you know, so the advantage of having monsters and getting those bonus points becomes mitigated, because you're just going to give up a point every turn. I think the you know, the double Maw Crusher, the Bill's list had a Terrorgeist and the Mercenary Giant, you know, Archeon and Kairos.
Well, shit, Bill is a savant. I mean, everything he runs is like, he could just pull out something out of a sack and he could win.
Yeah.
You know?
So you see a lot of this kind of like 2 decent, chunky kind of monsters that give you the access to score the bonus battle points, but also aren't necessarily detrimental in the way that are going to kind of give up a lot of the battle tech, the extra points for killing a monster. Basically is what happens. You get a point every turn. If you kill a monster that turn, you get an extra bonus point.
Yeah.
So I think,
and what I meant by objectives, I didn't really mean like the actual point.
No, yeah,
I
hear you.
I just meant like the milestone. Yeah. But all right. So having said that, you want to tell us about what you did at the Summer Slaughter?
Sure. Yeah.
When did that happen? Last weekend, right?
Yeah. I can talk about that quickly, and then we can kind of talk about Nashcon. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to do back-to-back tournaments, but here we are.
Try hard.
Yeah, apparently. It's, you know, you think after all this trying, I would have something to show for, but not quite yet. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Yeah.
Summer Slaughter was a lot of fun. They, you know, ran a great event. It was by the Basement Wargamer Club in Eastern Pennsylvania. It was this past weekend, which was August 13th and 14th, something like that. Let me check. 14th, 15th is when the tournament ran. Great event, 2 days, had 100 players. I think maybe one or two dropped, and then it ended with 98 or something like that. So huge event.
Nice.
They had, you know, served food at the venue, served drinks. It was an awesome time. Can't say enough good things. Had 5 great games. Got to see Bill, got to see Mike, Mike, went down with Luke. Got to see Joe Cryer, you know, just got to see a bunch of people that I always enjoy seeing at tournaments, and you know, can't say enough good things about those guys. In terms of
any locals that showed up besides Luke, did you see anybody else?
So yeah, there was a couple people, Raymond. There was a couple people that Luke had knew that were going down, that he had met at a tournament that he went to at one of the Mythicos tournaments from a while ago.
Nice.
I hadn't bumped into them before, but they must be local-ish because they were at a Mythicos tournament. So yeah, there was a couple local-ish people that were down there.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, great event. Can't say enough. Definitely had some very, very tough lists. Very, very good. Traditionally good Warhammer, you know, Age of Sigmar players that were there competing. I brought Seraphon, of course. My list was Dracothion's Tale. It's kind of the list I've been messing around with. I don't love it. Full disclosure, it's not a list that I would say like, yeah, this is the Seraphon list you should play. It's just kind of something that I've been messing around with. I think it does have some problems, which I can talk about. It's Dracothion's Tale, so it's got the Slann general with the artifact. So he's kind of the linchpin. Dracothian's Tale lets you keep stuff in the sky and then bring it down wholly within the Slann. So it's the Slann, the Starseer, the Priest, and the Astrolith Bear, just kind of your sort of general kind of conglomerate of Seraphon heroes. 3 units of 10 Skinks for just some screens, 2 units of 5 Knights for slightly better screens. They can, you know, have a little bit of a better save. They can punch a little bit harder. The idea there was that they could kind of outfight other smaller screens. I found,
they're a 4-up or a 3-up.
So they're a 4-up base, and you can obviously buff them to the 3-up. The problem with the Skinks is when they have the shields is +1 to your save rolls. You can't all out defense on top of they basically max out at a 5-up save, so they, you know, die like the little babies they are. I had 5 Saurus Guard, and then I had 3 units of 2 Salamanders. So the idea is basically a lot of screens, drop down a bunch of Salamanders, blow something up, you know, keep the screens in front of the Salamanders, and kind of use the Salamanders to shoot stuff off the table. I thought the Salamanders would be really good because it's kind of the only thing in the Seraphon list that has decent rend. Figured it'd be a lot of high rend stuff. They still do morals. They do a ton of damage. So basically, it was like a ton of damage there. And I also brought Shackles, which just is either completely useless or way too good. It's a very odd, endless spell. I found it either completely cripples you if you can't, you know, if you're an army that needs to charge and you can't get it off the table, or it does absolutely nothing and just kind of gets in your own way.
Tell us what it does again.
So Shackles, it's the 3 little like chain pieces. Put it down wholly within 12 inches of the caster, and if you're within 6 inches of that, you can't run or charge. Basically, it also can do some mortals on a 6, but the big thing is you can't run or charge if you're within 6 of it. So you can kind of set up the little salamanders with the screen and then put the shackles in front of it. So to just kind of give you some additional space. To make sure that your salamanders aren't just getting charged by the first thing that looks at them.
Guard Trek.
So I you know, Go Trek is very popular in Seraphon lists. I'm a little bit of a purist for really no other reason than I don't have Gotrek. I don't want to buy him. I don't want to paint him. So I pretend that I just, I'm like a Seraphon purist. I'm only going to play Seraphon, but really it's just because I don't have him. If I did, I would 100% put him in my list.
Well, I have a second one that you can have.
Okay.
Just
nice.
saying. We could paint him like a lizard or something.
That would be, that would be perfect. Someone like there actually lizard. Had, it's funny you mentioned that someone there had that exact same thing. They had a lizard with a mohawk, and it was like, he's like, yeah, that's fine, Gotrek. You can tell because he has a mohawk. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. But yeah, played 5 great games. I played Ryan Dean Gargants round 1, took the loss there. Ryan's a great player, and Gargants are tough in 3.0. Oh, yeah. They, like I was kind of saying here a little bit earlier, they do a great job of denying your points. Will also, like, a Gargant moves onto a point, it's 25 minimum models on that point, and it becomes very hard to dislodge them. The only way is to kill that Gargant. So it's very much a DPS checklist. Like, can you kill that many wounds before they just kind of outscore you? I know Mike played Gargants his first round too, and he actually ended up tabling the Gargant opponent, but lost by 1 point because kind of that exact thing. The Gargant player just had kind of built up his score early with all those extra bonus points, and by being able to deny certain battle tactics, that even by getting tabled, in the later turns of the games, he was able to maintain that lead. So took the loss there. Then I played against a Legion of the First Prince list, great guy. Said it was only his, had only played a couple games of Age of Sigmar, but the list was nasty. He had 10 pinks, a bunch of Plague Bearers, Bellicor, Lord of Change. Was able to get the win there, blew up Scarbrand early, and the Salamanders just kind of were able to dice through the Plague Bearers. He got a little unlucky too. The summons missed that 2 of the 3 times he tried. Missed out on the summons, which obviously is a pretty big blow to Legion of the First Prince. Mm-hmm. And then I played Feck the last game of day 3, which was also able to win. Again, was able to blow up both Terrorgeist turn 1, which probably, I think in retrospect, if we played the game again, he probably wouldn't let that happen, and then would be a lot. And it ended up being a very tight game just with the summons and kind of dancing back and forth on the objectives. That still ended up being pretty tight, but I think losing the 2 Terrorgeist early did kind of make that made it a very steep uphill climb for him. And then day 2, I played Ironjaws, which was kind of the army I sort of tailored this list to not necessarily like, I'm like, oh, I want this list to beat Ironjaws, but I thought like that style of list is going to be really popular. 2 big, really tough monsters, some smaller, tougher kind of elite things, Battleline and the brutes.
As it stands right now, Ironjaws are doing really well because
they definitely have some play in 3.0 a lot. I mean, the Maw Crushers are great. The brute, it's a list. It's pretty straightforward in its play style, but they have just enough tricks to kind of keep you honest. Again, I was very much like Feck. I was able to kind of take the win there. It was a super close game. I actually won by like 2 points, I think. And on turn 5, but super close. He charged his Maw Crusher in turn 1, deleted some stuff, and then I just ended up killing it with Salamanders. And I think that hurt him a little bit. And I was able to just kind of dance around sort of a middle piece of terrain. He came on one side. I just kind of, because I can keep stuff in this, brought it, kind of on another side and just like hard push that side. And was just fat, Skinks and Salamanders move 8. So it's a little bit faster than brutes running across the table. So I was just able to kind of squeak that one out. And then my last game was against a really awesome guy named Brad, who was playing Fire Slayers. And I made the mistake of getting engaged too early. I came down and I took top of, it's a 2-drop. The whole army's in 2 battle regiments. So it's a 2-drop. So I took first turn thinking like, all right, I'm going to try to do as much damage as I can before he gets all his +1 to saves up. Because the army had like 2 battlesmiths, and it basically had ways to get an additional +3 to a save. So even with the Rend 2 on the Salamanders, it would be really hard to kind of cruise through all that stuff. I put everything into a unit. I killed like 7 berserkers, which is not easy by any means, but it just wasn't. He had 2 units at 15, so he still had 7 left and another 15, and it kind of turned into this little bit of a scrum in the middle, and that's exactly what Fire Slayers want to do. They want to scrum with you in the middle on the objective. So that was, Brad played a great game, and I played it all wrong. So I lost. So and ended up 3-2. And I think that kind of is when I said I think the list has some problems. I was expecting, and this is who knows how the edition turns out. I had kind of gone into expecting to fight lists with screens, and then the Saurus Knights would be good at fighting those screens. I've fought pretty consistently. I find I'm fighting armies that just have like stuff that's mean across the board. Iron Jaws, it's like 2 Maw Crushers, a bunch of Brutes, and a unit of Gore Grunchers. Like all that stuff is mean. Fire Slayers, It was 2 big blocks of Hearth Guard, some heroes, and all that stuff is mean. There's not like anything that the Knights do anything to, really. I mean, Gargants, same thing. Everything's mean. There's not really anything that the Knights do anything against. So I'm finding that the idea of having like, here's 5 screens for my Salamanders to just be a little less effective than I thought it was going to be. And I'm also the Salamanders are great. Don't get me wrong. They do a ton of damage. The 12-inch range is very limiting in terms of how you can project your power. So being able to drop them and then shoot obviously is great. But there is that little bit of an issue, is like, especially against Fire Slayers, where you want to kill the hero that is giving them the 4-up ignore, the 4-up feel no pain, whatever, the ward. And he played a great game, so he didn't give that to me with the Salamanders, and they have the Auric to bounce the wounds onto, and the general has the 4-up spell ignore. So the Slann usually, it's like, all right, if the Salamanders can't hit him, then the Slann can usually kill some of those small wound heroes over the course of a couple turns, just with like Comet's Call and stuff like that. That doesn't happen against an army like Fire Slayers. It doesn't happen against an army like Gargants, obviously. The Salamanders actually do pretty good against Gargants. But so yeah, I think I would love to. I had to lock the list before I finished the weekend for Nashcon, so I'm playing the same thing at Nashcon. But I think
that was one of my other questions. Like, did you change your list up at all?
No. So Nashcon is a 2-list event, which is really cool. Okay. So I do have a second list, which is the same thing. I just dropped 2 of the Saurus Knights for Battleline to have a monster in there to kind of like do some of that monstery stuff. But in retrospect, if I could do it all over again, I think I would lean in on the Thunder Lizard. That seems to be where Seraphon is finding the most success.
That's the recommendation that you gave me, because for my list, because I'm building up a little Seraphon kind of fun list. So
yeah,
you said Thunder Lizard and Besties. Like what do you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things where once upon a time, 2.0 Starborn was great. The bigger boards gave you so much more freedom from a teleporting standpoint. Things were a lot more spread out, so it was a lot easier to teleport and summon and kind of do these little like steal objectives out from under people's noses and kind of do some more tricksy stuff. The boards being a little bit tighter, objectives being a little bit tighter together. I just feel like that the coalesced lists function better in 3.0. That they want to have the monsters, because in Thunder Lizard you're getting an extra 2 wounds on the monsters, so you want to have the monsters which have the added benefit of everything we've already talked about, extra points. The heroes on the monsters also get the heroic actions, which is just another great layer. A lot of, especially the Stegodons in Thunder Lizard and the Bastiladons, they are good defensively and offensively. And now that they, count as 5 from 3.0, they can actually hold pretty decently as well, too. So, like,
just really quickly, you can do D3 mortal wounds on the charge. For the monster's reactions. You can delete a piece of scenery, or like kind of like a defensible terrain kind of thing. And then what's the third one? Or
so you can so one of them is called like Titanic something, which is if you're
Titanic
fighting a monster, you get like a +1 to hit. And then the other one is Roar, where on a 3-up, that unit that you're roared at can't use combat phase command abilities, which is fantastic because it obviously stops the all-out defense, which becomes very important when everything is so tough. So like being able to stop that does become very important. So I'm excited to try that version out. I'm probably going to end up playing that version. You have to play both lists at least one time, so I'll probably play the Bastiladin version more, but we'll see. But yeah, I think Thunder Lizard is the way to go, just because things are a little bit tighter, blah blah. The -1 damage is obviously huge now that Gargants are a lot more popular, monsters are a lot more popular. Armies seem to be getting a little bit more elite. I would say most armies seem to be getting a little bit more elite, and usually it's those elite models that have the higher damage attacks. So -1 damage just becomes a lot more effective. Unless you're going up against Lumineth, which I just don't know how to deal with that army. So I just lose. I'm like, oh, it's Lumineth. Like, I'll try something new this time. It just still lose.
You've got the fox, you've got the archers,
dude, I have no
kangaroos, and he's just like, I can't even catch that motherfucking thing.
I have no idea what to do against them. But yeah, that's I think after Nashcon, my next event, I think, is the boys. I have tickets for New Orleans, but I just don't know if I'm feeling up to spending the money to go to New Orleans. But we'll see. But I think after Nashcon, I'm probably going to spend some time sort of refining a Thunder Lizard list and seeing how that works out.
Nice. What's besides the two lists kind of format for Nashcon? What else do you think about the tournament, like from a compact? Did they show you the missions they would be playing? Do they have that all set up beforehand, or is it random, or how's it?
So they give you the. Sorry, I'm looking at it right now.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, not at all. Yeah. So they give you they do the kind of the typical thing nowadays where they're like, here's 7 battle plans. We're going to pick five of them. So I enjoy all of the battle plans in 3.0. So to me, it's kind of like, yeah, that's cool. It's the only thing about it is like, it's kind of like day of, once you know what round, like some of the critical ones are, like the Vice, like you don't want to play Gargants on the Vice, for example, just because it becomes, they're like, oh, there's one turn 4, there's one objective in the center of the board, like, oh, here's 2 Gargants, it's 60 models on this objective, like, have fun pulling that
they
off.
can also kick it away, like in their backfield or whatever. They can kick it back to so that's just like, there's like certain matchup specific things that you kind of want to keep in mind. The one thing that it looks like Nashcon is doing, and I will apologize ahead of time for getting any of this wrong, and we can clarify that, because I think we'll do a show after I get back as well. Yeah, we'll do like a post tournament recap kind of a thing.
So the way Summer Slaughter scored is that in BCP it was just like your score, you put in your VP went in. So if the game was, you got 30 points and your opponent got 21, you had a 30-point victory, 30-21. And then that's what went in. And that helped kind of, like we were talking about earlier, sort of separate the pack a little bit. And then, the people who were getting those 6-point turns every single turn, they were separated. They were kind of climbing farther ahead. They were separating themselves as the ones to be the ones who were kind of racking up the points. It looks like, at least, that Nashcon is doing kind of a little bit more of maybe the 2.0 style of, like, you get 15 points for a major victory, 10 points for a minor victory, 7 points for a draw type of thing. And then I imagine there will be an added wrinkle of, like, maybe it's like how many battle tactics you scored will play into that, or something. There might be an additional kind of thing in there to sort of give it a little bit more separation. But that is very interesting, because it does kind of undermine a lot of the stuff I talked about earlier about, oh, you want to score big every turn, and that's what's going to help you win events. Like, an event that's scoring like this, all you need to do is win the game, right? So if you win the game by 1 point, or if you win the game by 15, it doesn't matter. You don't need to score 6 points every turn. You just need to win. So that definitely does change things a little bit, and it
again, like we'll clarify once you come back exactly. Like I personally, unfortunately, haven't like read the compact. Maybe you could forward it to me so I could read it before the next podcast. But I kind of don't like that though. Like I like, because if you win by 1 point, or if you win by 20, you're still getting 16 points or whatever that is, for like a major victory, and your opponent gets a major loss, and it really doesn't show you like the closeness or the kind of like borderline kind of victory that happened there.
Right. So I think there are definitely arguments both ways.
Sure.
I think I would tend to agree with you, but also, there's the, like, if you beat a really great opponent by 1 point, but it was a low scoring game, the way that we're talking about, the way that Summer Slaughter did it, you're going to be, you're going to be punished for that because you happen to play a tough opponent early that made the game very tight. So I mean, I think it's like two ways of doing it. There's always pros and cons. I personally think that you'll start to see a lot of events go towards the way the Summer Slaughter did it, where it's just like whatever VPs you scored, that's the score in the app. That's what you get. It's not like, oh, I won the game, so now I'm getting 15 victory points for battle points for my victory or whatever it is. I do think you'll start to see that becoming a lot more popular, but I do like that, there still is a little bit of this kind of variability where, because an event like this, Nashcon, where you do just kind of have to win and you get the win. I think that, lists like we were talking about earlier that need use 2 tough monsters to make sure you're maxing victory points every single turn. That becomes a little bit less important because you can be a little bit more passive. You can be a little bit more, I'm going to kind of throw this turn away a little bit because I don't have to go up big. I don't have to score in every turn or max in every turn. Like, I just need to win by 1. So it changes things a little bit. And I want to say it's like a better player than me, I'm sure, would know how to like maximize that efficiency and like build that into their list and probably make that part of their game plan. But I'm just going to roll some dice and see what happens.
And meet some people, drink some beers, dude. For sure.
Just have a good time.
Yeah. Real quick, have you done any hobby?
Have I done any hobby? So the last bit of hobby I did was I got my Realm Shaper engine painted up ish. It's still work in progress ish. I need to finish the top of it. I would like to put more detail into the top of it. I painted that up for when I went to Dallas, the Lone Star Open a couple weeks ago, because 3.0 changed the Realm Shaper engine rules, and I had bought one when the new book came out last year, and I just never built it because in 2.0 I didn't like using it for a variety of reasons. And in 3, there's really no downside to using it. And it's awesome. It's awesome. It's probably the best terrain piece in the game now. So yeah, I built that up so I could use it.
Isn't it the Lumineth floating hill thing?
Yeah, that's good too.
Everything Lumineth is like just stupid bonkers. Like, quick, have you seen any like Ideneth lists on the tables at the tournaments? Have you seen any like Citizens of Sycamore, or is it just the ones that kind of like the same ongoing ones? Do you see any like diversity in the tournament lists? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so up and down the tables, there's obviously a ton of diversity. There was an amazing list at Summer Slaughter that was just 8 sharks in Ideneth. It was like 8 sharks. And which is awesome. I don't know how he ended up doing, but I do know that he at least won a couple of his games because I think he was playing near me in one of the days. So yeah, I love that list. I think that's a great. I I don't know if that's like the way that you should be building Idoneth, but like 8 sharks sounds like a blast to me. And it has some great shooting power. Sharks are great in combat. They can stop you from piling in, which adds just so much fun shenanigans you can do. So I love that. There was a list when I was in Dallas, the Cities of Sigmar list. There was two Cities of Sigmar lists that stood out. One was a Living City list that came in third that had, it was really kind of just felt like very much like a toolbox. It had Alariel, it had a unit of 30 Iron Drakes, it had a unit of 10 Longbeards, and it had a Tree Lord, and I'm sure it had some other stuff. But it was very much, it was kind of like this cool toolbox of stuff that it could use. You know, Alariel could bring Dryads in if you needed the screens, or could bring another Tree Lord in if you wanted that extra monster.
Some Kurnoth Hunters, or, you know.
Yeah. It had the Tree Lord for the Stomp to fight last. It had the Iron Drakes that you could bring in with the Living Cities command point thing, like from the board edge, you know, to shoot and to have Unleashed Shell. So like that was a very cool list. The person who played it, Gavin, is a wonderful player. He actually won Atlantic City Open. That was like a 2.0 tournament, one of the last 2.0 tournaments. He won that with KO. Did really well with that. Just lost one game, barely, to one of his club mates. So I don't think he came in third. He might have come in fourth. He placed very well. Just dropped one really close game against one of his club mates. And then there was another list at Dallas that was just a ton of Phoenix Guard. It was like just a ton of Phoenix Guard, which is interesting because it's the type of army that I think, again, it just kind of plays 3 well, where it's like, you know, you only have to, if you hold 1, if you hold 2, and if you hold more, you're maxing your primaries every turn. So Phoenix Guard do that really. You push 230 blocks of Phoenix Guard onto 2 objectives, and a lot of these 3 objective battle plans, and it's like, all right, I'm going to score my max primaries for the game. Like that is a hard block to shift off of either objective. And then when it's backed up with, you know, a Phoenix to do some magic stuff, to kind of be a little bit of that scalpel. Oh, I need to kill a battle line for my tactic. Like I got a couple things. I got, you know, some spells in Hollow Heart or whatever it is to like reach out and kind of kill some.
That's a really expensive army though, because they lost their horde bonus, you know, for like max unit.
I'll see if I can find it actually. But yeah, that I thought that was a really cool list.
I've been listening a lot to the Honest Wargamer. Rob does a lot of really good kind of faction reactions and faction focus things. Especially, he invites a lot of really good people. And going back to the Idoneth, he was talking about Reavers being amazing because they have one of the Soul Scryers priests that can get the prayer curse, and then all of a sudden you have 3 shots into like a unit and 6 is Mortals, so you could run like a bunch of Reavers. You could do like focus shots or disperse shots.
The Reaver spam list I know is getting talked about a bit. I haven't seen anyone play it. Someone may have had it at one of the tournaments, but I didn't see anyone play it. I haven't, and neither of the tournaments I've gone to for 3.0 yet have Idoneth placed particularly well. I think they were playing firmly kind of like in that middle of the pack space. I think they have a relatively old book. I think they're one that is like a little bit of just people have to kind of figure out how do they fit into 3.0. But yeah, I have heard people talk about the Reavers, and I think that there's probably definitely at least a little bit of play there. Curse is awesome. But so this list I found the Phoenix Guard list.
Go on.
I found the Phoenix Guard list. It was 2 20s of Phoenix Guard and a 10 of Phoenix Guard. It was all in Hollow Heart. It had a Hurricanum. It had a Battle Mage. It had a Hurricanum with a Battle Mage. It had an Anointed, and then it had an Anointed on a Flamespire Phoenix. So I thought that list was pretty cool, just because
that sounds like a lot of fun, you know.
Yeah, I imagine that was probably a lot of fun to play, but yeah, I haven't seen any Anvil Guard. Oh, there may have been one Anvil Guard list in Summer Slaughter, but I don't know what they were running. But yeah, I've found Living Cities. and Hellheart. I know Noah is actually bringing cities to Nashcon, so we'll see how he does.
Yeah.
But
he's always been dabbling in cities a little bit, but he mostly focused during the pandemic and TTS on chaos. He played a lot of Knights of the Empty Throne, and he played a lot of pinks, and
he played the Maggot Can and the Legion of First Prince Chaos Ascendant for a while.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm actually building myself a Living Cities list, covering the whole thing using all of my wood elf bits. So it's all themed around the hawk. Like they used to have like the Warhawk riders and the Great Eagles and all that stuff, and then archers and stuff like that. So I'm building. Cool, dude. I'm converting a Stardrake.
Dude, you should put a picture of that in the in like the YouTube comment or whatever, however you do that, because that it is very, very cool.
Send me a list and everything, and then I'll put images, like I'll edit this whole video and I'll like put all the images up and all that stuff.
Yeah, dude, that's very cool. Luke was showing me your Hurricanum conversion too. That is wild, man. That is so cool.
I took the Hurricanum body, and then I took the old Wildwoods that those really janky kind of like three trees on a base kind of thing. I have so many of them from the tournaments I used to run. Like it's insane. I think I have like 20 to 30 boxes of those things. Dude. Yeah, it's insane. So I took the Hurricanum body, I shoved the tree on the top, and then I snipped all the tree branches and then put them as roots. And then I stuck aquarium like kind of plants on top of the branches and the roots and everything. It looks like it's coming alive. The whole concept is that the Hurricanum itself, like the body, like the main kind of carriage of the Hurricanum, I popped the wheels off. It's being like reborn through a like one of these wood elf mages, because like the body's made out of wood. So it's like it's making it grow again. So it's all sprouting these legs and these trees and all these limbs. And instead of the horses and the wheels, it's actually walking on the tree roots as it grows, almost snake-like,
Yeah, dude. So, it is a very, very cool concept, and the pictures that I've seen seems like it's coming together very, very well, dude. I think that it's an awesome. I can't wait to see it when it's all kind of finished up and stuff. Do you know what all the pieces are? Are you just kind of like as you want to convert stuff, you're like, you know what, I want to do this.
It's kind of a fun list. It's not totally maxed out, but I want to do a Lord Celestin on what do you call it? The dragon thing. Jesus, I'm like blanking. A Stardrake, right? So that's going to be my giant Warhawk, with and then I took a War Dancer Lord from back in 8th edition Warhammer. I stuck it on top. I gave him the blades, and that thing's kind of crazy. I could talk a little bit about it, but then I have a Celestial Hurricanum with Battle Mage. Then I have a Assassin. That gives the Shadow Warriors the Battleline keyword. So I have 3 units of those. And then I have 2 giant units of Sisters of the Watch that can come either on the table or they can come from the sides in Living Cities. And that's about it.
Man. Nice.
So the whole idea of the list that Living Cities that I'm putting together is that the Stardrake itself doesn't have a huge amount of output. It has secondary and tertiary output modes. For example, like savings. If he makes the saves, it deals out mortal wounds. Then he has some sort of like star or comet attacks, so he can come through the side of the board, do a comet attack move. But you can give it all-out attack. You can give it their finest hour, and then you can give it a 2-up save, re-rolling ones. Saves allow it to do mortal wounds back. Then it has a couple of attacks with its tail and its jaws. So it becomes this extremely hard to shift giant base in the middle of the table. and then that allows me to bog down my opponent's army. Well, this, of course, this is my tactic, but who knows if it's going to work? I still have to test it out. But
and then you have the 2 big blocks to kind of shoot the shit out of everything. I mean, I like, dude. I mean, if nothing else,
Sixes do mortal wounds with
it feels
Assistance
very,
of the Watch.
feels very thematic. Feels very like it'll be, you know, kind of
Maybe
gives
my
you
Shard Drake can become a priest, give curse on like a unit, and have all that stuff. Like, for example, the
How would you do that? Can you make something a priest?
Yeah, it's High Priest. It's an actual like command ability. Not it's an enhancement or whatever it's called. You know, you can.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I left my GHB at Summer Slaughter, so I don't.
Oh,
I gotta go pick one up today or tomorrow, I guess, before I leave for Nashcon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I was talking to one of the Discord groups. I was like, it was a rite of passage that's bound to happen eventually. I've like been pretty good about not leaving stuff at tournaments, and then I didn't even notice it until I got home, and I went to go check a rule for something, and I went into my bag, and I'm like, huh, it's not in there. Went to my car, huh, it's not in there. And I was like, yeah, oh yeah, I must have just like left it on the table at my last game. So yeah, I guess I passed that rite of passage. I left something important at a tournament, and it's gone forever now. But that's okay.
Well, we started recording this first podcast that like after like the return of the Iron Kraken, and I left all of my books in the car. You know, so I can't really like walk away and go grab them. You know, so
that's okay.
Whatever. But yeah, no, it's like if the Shadow Warriors come in terrain, they get a +1 to hit, +1 to wound, so they're hitting on 2s and 3s.
Well, I know you love the Shadow Warriors, so Seraphon can ally with cities now, and they are one of the things that I've been thinking about, just because they're they have their own rules
for infiltrating. So
yeah,
you know,
so
you don't have
the War Scroll itself is great.
You can run Coalesced. You know, you don't have to run Starborn, and then you can bring stuff down with the Shadow Warriors to have that ability to, you know, control the board.
So I'm eagerly awaiting the Stormcast book to come out. Not because I want to play Stormcast, but because Seraphon can ally with Stormcast, and I feel like the thing that my list is missing, maybe not that list specifically, but like Seraphon in general are kind of missing this like thing that can take a charge, can kind of take a little bit of a punch and not just fall apart. You know, like 10 skink, like the Skinks, Saurus Warriors, even stuff that's in Coalesce, like, you know, the Stags have a 4-up base. You're like a 3-up max save. The Bastiladon is certainly very tough, but that's like the kind of the only thing you have, and it's not really like it's not necessarily something you want to be taking a charge outside of a couple specific scenarios where you're like, yeah, you're just going to bounce off this because he's going to be a one-up save. But I was looking at the Stormcast, and I kind of want to, I mean, whether it's the dragons or whether it's like the Fulminator style Desolator style models, Concussor style models, or I don't know, something like it that feels like it'll be a good area to look at for like something that has like a 3-up base save that I can ally into the army, that can be like, all right, here's my thing that has a 3-up base save that, you know, with all out defense can be on a 2, and you know, doesn't need, you know, what does the War Scroll look like? It doesn't need a lot of like either the Stormcast, you know, because Annihilators are great, but they really depend a lot on kind of like the Stormcast Allegiance abilities to sort of do what they want to do.
Right.
So allying them in isn't the best choice, but I want, that's kind of my thoughts for it. And I figured, you know, like they're like dragons, so it kind of makes sense to put in Seraphon, right?
They're lizard enough. Don't worry about it. They're like almost there. Yeah.
It's all kind of like lizard adjacent.
Well, can you like replace the Stormcast on top with some sort of
that's kind of what I think I would do, or
lizards,
even like
riding lizards, more lizards.
Yeah, dude, you're like lizards riding lizards. It's like the Seraphon name of the game, or just like pop their heads off and put a Seraphon head or something. I don't know. I'll figure something out, but that because I've always liked the what are they called? Dracothion. Dracoth, whatever the Fulminator
Knights,
models.
yeah.
The Dracoth Knights. Those models are cool. And then the new dragons are sweet. So I'm kind of hoping that they will.
Well, they even have a place in cities. They're really good, especially in living cities.
You
they have a
brought
shooting attack. You
you brought concussors for a while, right?
Yeah, I used to run concussors. I mean, I might just drop my big dragon. I just wanted to do this mostly for like a
The conversion
project. Yeah, it looks cool. So, but concussors are really good. Fulminators, all these things, because they come off the sideboard. They shoot. They move. They charge.
Oh, it does. It does look like rumors. Not to go up like on this like crazy like rumor tangent, but it does look like they moved the breath attack from a shooting attack into just a flat ability, so that you won't be able to. That's what it looks like. I mean, who knows? No one's seen the actual Oracle. They just have the pictures from the booklet. Like when you buy the kit, it's like at the end of the rules.
It's got like those like icons for
So people have like posted pictures of that, and it doesn't look like they have a shooting attack anymore. The idea being that they must have moved it to an ability, so you can't unleash hell with it. You can't like do kind of some of that other stuff that it being a shooting attack does let you do.
Well, that's a bummer because
I mean, we'll see.
That was a really cool, like little kind of tricksy thing that you could do with them. But
it'll be cool. I mean, if concussors still maintain the whole like you can't pile in if they do damage to you like that, that would be some pretty interesting tech too, especially in a list like Thunder Lizard where a lot of your damage is coming from these monster bases where you're kind of tagging something on the end, putting concussors in, and you're like, oh, you can't pile in. So it's like it does start to really mitigate the amount of damage that can come back at you. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a book I'm excited for, and I'm usually not excited for Stormcast because they've always been kind of a little whatever. I think
I've collected a full Stormcast army, and I just can't get myself to paint it. I don't know. It's
I feel like there's people. I mean, people either love them or I feel like hate them. They're like a very divisive. People are either like, oh yeah, armored dudes falling from the sky. Like, what's not to like? They have
I'll paint like the odd hero here and there as a support character. I used to run the Lord Ordinator with my Hellstorm rocket batteries when I
what a combo that was.
Yeah, that was a great combo. And then I have like the Knight of Zeros and all that stuff, but I really can't. I don't know. I love the way they look now compared to the old ones. A little
bit like it feels like the proportions are a little bit better.
Yeah,
so there's something about them that feels.
They look faster. They're more slimmer. They're a little more. I don't know, but the other ones were like really chunky looking. So
I agree. Yeah, so the long tangent, Nashcon. I'm super excited. I'm excited to, even though I'm not like totally in love with my list, I'm excited to kind of give it one more go, especially with that like second variant I was talking about. I'm looking forward to playing some more games, and then also looking forward to having a little bit of a break from tournaments, so I can.
Well, come over to the studio, and we'll like do like a battle report.
Definitely.
I just got like a nice camera. We could do like a top-down view kind of battle report with a little bit of like B-roll, between the turns and stuff like that.
Definitely, dude.
Yeah. So bring your list, and we'll show people exactly what they do, because a lot of people talk about lists, a lot of people talk about rules, but once you put them on the table, you really kind of get a sense of efficiency and kind of output, like damage output percentages and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of great. Like I kind of putting this list together, like I thought, I had high hopes. I had high hopes, and then after playing it across, the Lone Star Open and Summer Slaughter, I've, on the table, it has certainly performed a little bit differently than kind of the way I was hoping it would perform. And I think, some of that comes down to just not being super familiar with 3. Some of it comes down to expecting other stuff to be popular than what ultimately ended up being popular. And I think, but yeah, it's, the start of a new edition is always kind of a wild ride in terms of trying to build your own list. And it's kind of cool that there's not a ton of like super obvious net lists yet. So you do get a lot of this, like people just kind of exploring and figuring stuff out, and sharing with each other online and stuff like that.
We have a very good community, especially if you put a question out there, especially like on the Discord channels that we've got and all that stuff. People will help you. I think people just need to play more. Nobody really knows exactly what's happening right now. They kind of have an idea. They're kind of feeling their way around. Some people have found lists that work really well, but give it another couple of months, like 6 months or so, just for people to really kind of, play tournaments and play with each other. Everybody's kind of coming out of their hermit, holes and going back to tournaments and things, which is freaking amazing. I love that. And yeah, man. Well, listen, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely, dude.
We're looking forward to having you back and giving us the rundown on Nashcon and everything. Hopefully the 3-2 curse will break,
We'll see, man. But we will see. It's always hard. It's always hard. Every game is, people are good, and especially in 3 now, I think there's a lot of and people aren't coming into a tournament like, oh, I've played 200 games of 2. Like, I know what I'm doing. I've, matched up in every list a billion times. So like it's definitely, there's definitely a learning curve. It's definitely very interesting, but yeah, I'm hoping to break that barrier, but we will see. I'm excited for the boys. I know Luke is all amped up on, there's a tournament in September in Binghamton, I think, Crossroads, I think it's called.
Okay.
That he's thinking about going to, which is cool. He kind of got a taste of the tournament scene at Summer Slaughter, and he was all amped up.
Luke's such a great guy, But,
yeah, which is always great to see. And and
super competitive too.
Yeah, and I think that's that's the best thing to do is like just if you're thinking about going, like just go to one and get a feel for it, because like it's hard. And he, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, like he said a couple times that he was surprised at just like how like the atmosphere was a lot like chiller and cooler and stuff than he expected. Like I think tournaments and it's 100-man GT and like the big, like people expect these things to be like super cutthroat and like super gamey about rules and every millimeter and shit like that. And it's like, it's just, at least in my experience, has it's not like that. They're very, very they're social events for lack of better, social events that revolve around a hobby that everyone that's there really enjoys. So yeah, I cannot recommend going to a tournament enough. Echo your statement entirely that super happy, at least for now, that everyone is back out there and is able to go to tournaments. I guess we'll see if that maintains true or if things start shutting down again. But
listen, send me a link for that, because I might be down to go in September myself. It'll give me a little motivation to finish my Cities Sigmar army, get a couple of games in, practice with it, see how it does.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm gonna be looking to after Nashcon to play a couple games and with some new stuff, start thinking about different lists and how that'll work out. So
you're still sticking with Seraphon.
I can't not play Seraphon. I don't know what it is, honestly, but like any time I start to, the only time I ever really even like thought about switching stuff was like at the very tail end of 2, when I played like 50 games with that Fangs list, and I was just like, you know what, like I feel like Seraphon is like, I don't want to like mess around with other stuff, because like this is kind of the list that works, and I've played so many games with it. But even then, I played like 10 games with Knights of the Empty Throne, and then I was like, all right, I'm back.
It's nothing like the Lizards,
No, yeah, I was like, you know what, I got my little chaos out of my system. I'm back, going back to the Lizards, man.
Yeah, you had to choose chaos, right? Like the arch enemy of
I had to get a taste of the other side.
Yeah, of course. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming. And that's a wrap for the return of the Iron Kraken. I hope you guys had a good time. We'll join up with Basil after he gets back. He's going to give us a little rundown of what happened at Nashcon and talk about his opponents and what he learned from being there and everything. And all right, guys, keep on cracking. See you later.
See ya.